Today on Running to Him.
James shows God tests us. We are tempted by ourselves. Today we will read James 1, 9 through 18 and concentrate on verses 12 through 15. James 1, 9 through 18 says, "Now the believer of humble means should take pride in his high position, but the rich person's pride should be in his humiliation, because he will pass away like a wildflower in the meadow. For the sun rises with its heat and dries up the meadow. The petal of the flower falls off, and its beauty is lost forever. So also the rich person in the midst of his pursuits will wither away. Happy is the one who endures testing, because when he is proven to be genuine, he will receive the crown of life that God promised to those who love him. Let no one say when he's tempted, I am tempted by God, for God cannot be tempted by evil, and he himself tempts no one. But each one is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desires. Then, when the desire conceives, it gives birth to sin, and when the sin is full grown, it gives birth to death. Do not be led astray, my dear brothers and sisters. All generous giving and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation, or the slightest hint of change. By his sovereign plan, he gave us birth through the message of truth, that we would be a kind of firstfruits of all he created. Today, we'll look at the difference between a temptation, its source and purpose, and a test, its source and purpose. It is a common misconception that God can be the source of temptation and a test. This thinking comes from 1 Corinthians 1:13, where Paul writes, "No temptation has been overtaking you, but such as is common to man, and God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with the temptation will provide the way of escape also, so that you will be able to endure it." If someone takes that verse as a standalone, they might easily understand that God is the author of temptation. The fact that God provides a way of escape doesn't mean he set up the temptation. The story of Satan tempting Jesus in Matthew chapter 4, verses 1 through 11 proves this point. The word translated as temptation means to test by soliciting to sin. Through using this definition, we see the difference between God telling Adam that everything was available to him except the tree in the middle of the garden, and Satan, through the serpent, suggesting that God was trying to keep her and Eve and Adam from experiencing life to the fullest. James shows where temptation's source lies in our lives. Verses 14 and 15 plainly state that the source of our temptation lies deeply within our psyche. He writes that we are lured and enticed by our desires. We all know what the word lure means. It means looking at something without realizing the danger lurking within it. When we fish with a lure, we fool the fish into thinking that the lure is something to eat. But if we fish with a worm or some other bait, we are hiding the fact that if the fish strikes the bait, it will lose its life. The word entice is more substantial. It means to trap. We can be lured towards something but still swim away, and use the fish illustration, for example. But if the luring turns into enticement, we are trapped. When we think that what we are about to do will satisfy our innermost need for the moment, the desire. So verse 15 seals the deal when James writes, when the desire conceives, it gives birth to sin, and when sin is full grown, it gives birth to death. When we read 1 Corinthians 10:13, we can see the light that God shines in our faces when we are enticing ourselves into thinking we need to act in a certain way. God isn't the source. He's the way out. God doesn't tempt us. God uses tests to help us grow. He may place someone like a homeless person on the street to see if we will listen to the Spirit and help that person somehow. He may prick our hearts to show us the benefit of following His will. He may put a law or commandment to show us what he wants us to do. These are tests, not to punish or administer evil on us, but to help us grow into looking more like him through Christ. Verses 16 through 18 sum up this thought. Every way he interacts with us is to help us. Each time he interacts with us, he wants to help us on our way. God's methods are growth-oriented and love-induced. Temptation are death-oriented and hate-induced.
Thank you for listening. We pray that today's devotion was meaningful to you. We would love to hear from you. You can use either Facebook or YouTube to like, subscribe, share, and tell others about us. If you would like to contact us, you can reach me at phineasjacobus@runningtohim.net.